after making the big change in my own life and stepping off the track I was on, which was the track to financial wealth at the expense of many other things, I went on a journey to try to understand what were the elements or the pillars of building the sort of good, content, fulfilled life that I was after and that I believe most people are after. And I went and spoke to, at this point, thousands of people, but at that time, a few hundred. And old people, young people, people from different backgrounds, different places all over the world, and basically asked a common set of questions around their hopes for the future, what they wished they knew when they were younger. And what kept coming up over and over again were these four themes: time, people, purpose, and health.
Hello, and welcome to the Psychology Podcast, where we explore the depths of human potential. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman, a Columbia professor, best-selling author, and self-actualization coach. Today on the podcast, we have New York Times bestseller Sahil Bloom. Sahil believes that the greatest things in life come not from finding the right answer, but from asking the right questions. In this episode, we discuss Sahil's latest book, The 5 Types of Wealth, a transformative guide to design your dream life. We discuss his principles, tools, ideas, and frameworks for living a high-performing, healthy, wealthy life. This was a fun and informative chat. So without further ado, I bring you Sahil Bloom. Sahil Bloom, it's so great to chat with you, man.
I am thrilled to be here. This is a long time coming.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I see you talking to a lot of my other friends. I get jealous.
I feel the same way. I think I recently saw a conversation you had with Susan Cain that I was very, very jealous of, because Susan's one of the people I admire most in this world.
Well, weren't you on a fireside chat with her?
I was, yeah. She's been an incredible mentor and source of support along this whole journey with writing the book. Good. Actually, her advice on how to show up and write on a daily basis was one of the most formative pieces of advice during my own book writing process, because at the time I was really struggling with taking like a sort of linear chronological approach to the writing, starting from the beginning of the book and thinking I needed to write from the beginning to the end. And she told me that she just shows up and writes whatever section she's kind of inspired by. And so I thought, why don't I try that? That sounds like an interesting, different approach. And I tried it, and it fundamentally changed my entire book writing journey. And so I give her a ton of credit, because I don't know that I would have finished it remotely on time if not for that single piece of advice.
Was there any resistance within you going that route? Because you seem like a very organized, you seem like the kind of guy that likes to plan things out ahead of time. So was it out of your comfort zone?
Very much so. Although in general, I have found over the last several years, many things out of my comfort zone that ended up being the most fruitful things on that journey. And so I've learned to, at least creatively, lean into that and embrace some of the discomfort that comes from breaking those planning tendencies.
Yeah.
My general approach now, you are absolutely right. My wiring as a human being is to plan. And one thing that I've learned over the last several years is that you cannot plan the right course for your life or for your journey. And the reason that I believe that is now because my understanding is that the most interesting opportunities in life are inherently invisible to you where you stand today. They are asymmetric, they are nonlinear. And the only way that you uncover them is by taking action, by actually moving and walking. So 5 years ago, if you had asked me to write down 100 scenarios for where I would be in 5 years, I would have written out 100 scenarios, and not a single one of them would have been right. Because I was working in the world of investing, I hadn't started writing yet. I had absolutely no clue that this was a path. It wasn't even something I was interested in, energized by, or passionate about. It only started to reveal itself as I started taking action, as there was chaos, and as things started to change. And so now I no longer believe in the idea of planning out your life course. I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan. I don't have a 15-year plan. I really just try to take actions on a daily basis that I believe are going to move me in the right direction towards my general vision for the future. And I trust that those interesting opportunities and people will reveal themselves along that journey.
Yeah, I love that. I really resonate with that as well. I'm not into the 5-10 year plan. Yeah. So especially now with how uncertain the world is.
Do you feel the world is more uncertain now than it was?
I do. I feel that way. I don't know if it's true, but it feels that way. America.
Do you feel so? I guess I struggle with this question. I get asked this all the time. Like, how do you plan for an uncertain future? I wrote a piece about this recently because part of me says yes, the future feels more uncertain than ever before. But the history buff in me says, if I was living during the Cold War, I would probably have thought the future was very uncertain. If I was living during the Industrial Revolution, I would have felt the future was very uncertain. Like, there are always massive uncertainties that we can point to. And this is not the first time in American history that we've had incredible polarization. The Vietnam War era. There's a new Netflix documentary on the Vietnam War that you watch and you're like, oh my God, there's so many similarities to how we feel about our country right now. So I kind of go back and forth on this question of, is this time really different, or is there a fundamental kind of similarity or through line through history?
Well, I'll say this. If you could, and actually you can, freeze yourself and come back 200 years from now. Actually, it's possible that you could freeze yourself. I don't know if you'd come back, but it is possible these days to freeze. But let's say you did and you came back and 200 years from now, I would say that the world, because of AI, I'm thinking AI in particular, it's going to be really different. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty about where it's going. And the sort of human machine fusions that are already happening and how that's going to change humanity. I think there is some great uncertainty there.
But do you not think that if a person had done that in 1800, that they would also wake up today and feel like the world is dramatically different?
Yeah, that's true as well.
It's like, they would wake up and there would be moving machines and there would be, things that were telling you the answers to all your questions. Yeah, it would feel crazy.
Oh, they definitely be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean,
like there's a like Siri, talking to you.
Yeah. It sort of relates to I was at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting this weekend, and Warren Buffett often talks about the fact that this is the most incredible time to be alive. Like, with this being born right now, or being born when he was such an amazing time to be alive. And one of my friends posed the thought experiment to me of like, has that always been true? That you would much rather be born now than 100 years ago at every point in time throughout the course of history? Or is that a unique kind of more recent phenomenon? Because I do have one side of me that says, oh, maybe I wouldn't want to be born right now, because there's so many things that I don't know what the future of work is going to look like. I don't know what my kids are going to do when they're adults. But when you have children, you're kind of making an optimistic bet on the future, right? Like you're sort of going long the future through the act of having children. And so you kind of have this like juxtaposition of all these different tensions that you're playing off each other.
Yeah, for sure. You have 2 children, is that right?
I just one so far. I have a 3-year-old little boy.
Wonderful. Do you still wake up at 5 a.m. every day?
4, in fact. Yes, I do.
You're like an 8 to 4. You go to bed at 8.
Yeah. I try to. I mean, 8 to 4 is probably like my ideal self. I would say the majority of weekdays I'm like a 9 to 4 guy. But 8 to 4 in an ideal world.
Do you ever do you find these parody videos making fun of people like you funny, or do you take it personally?
I think if I took it personally, I wouldn't get very far in life. I think if you take anything too personally in life, you're probably not going to make it very far.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's like if I can't make fun of myself, I'd rather be dead. Like, I'll be the first person to make fun of myself for cold plunging in the morning.
So do you laugh at some of those videos?
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, the great paradox of routines is that all of these morning routines that were designed to serve us end up owning us if we allow them to. And I know many people, myself included at times, where the routine that was supposed to be helping you get the important work done became the work and started stressing you out. Like, if you're not in bed on time, or if your sleep score is off, like, you start thinking that you are going to be unable to perform, when the reality is that you can just wake up, drink a coffee, and just go to your desk and start doing important work. You don't need to go do the cold plunge or the million other things in order to get the meaningful work done. And that's a rather liberating realization that the routine can be adjusted. You can have an A level, a B level, and a C level to the routine, which is what I do. And depending on the situation and how I feel, I don't need to do, 8 million things to be ready. I like doing it because I'm a routine oriented creature. But I also can understand the humor in all of this for sure.
Well, what you've worked out really does work for you. That's undeniable based on your success, and it seems like you're a happy guy. It seems like your well-being is high as well. So it's working for you. My $1 million question that I want to discuss with you today is how compatible it is with self-actualization. My whole thing with self-actualization is that you have to find out what works for you, And so are you giving like quote protocols, that it sounds like you just said not everyone needs to wake up at 4 a.m. So then therefore there's a higher principle at play there, which is kind of like find the time that works best for you. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say more than anything else, what I attempt to do with all of my writing and work is help people ask better questions so that they can come to the right answers for their own lives. I would never, and I really attempt to avoid being prescriptive with any solutions, because my life and the way that I approach things is not going to be for everybody. I mean, first off, I am like a grade A disciplined psychopath. Throughout my entire life, I have been that way. I've been able to turn on and flip a switch that I wouldn't, frankly, wish on many people, because it gets you really blinded to a lot of other things in life. Like I could go into a hole and just do the one thing for a year if I needed to. And I actually don't think I think that's a double-edged sword. But no, I really try to avoid being prescriptive with solutions for that reason.
I like that. Grade A disciplined psychopath. I like that.
I don't think I've ever articulated it that way before, but
I would say type A disciplined psychopath.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I mean, Michael Jordan had it. Kobe Bryant had it. I mean, there is this you're able to have a single-mindedness about a certain goal that means a lot to you.
Yeah. And I think that the balance for me in my own life has been in finding that I don't need to harness that into the outcomes that everyone tells you should want. Because the cultural bias or assumption would be, okay, you have that in you. Go be a billionaire, or go become a world-class athlete, or do these different things that you're supposed to want to channel that into doing. And what that means often is, complete blindness to the other areas of your life. And we see that in, the people that we write books about. We often talk about the hard work and all of the, the sort of the list price of the things that they achieve, the hard work, the, long nights, discipline, etc. We very rarely talk about the real price, which also includes all of the sacrifices made in the other areas of life, the relationships foregone, the relationships lost, the stress levels, the impact on their health, all of these other things. And, I have been very clear-eyed about what price I am willing to pay for the things that I want to achieve.
It's very profound.
And I think that's very important.
I'm writing that down. Not many people consciously map that out. I learn a lot. I believe it or not, I learn a lot from you. Even just reading your tweets. There is something very action-oriented and then learn along the way about you that I like you're not afraid of failure. That's for sure. I mean, that's inspiring in and of itself. I think so many people are afraid of trying something that means a lot to them and failing. And I don't think you're afraid of failing. So that's very good. There's just a bunch of messages and things I think that really run through, threads that run through all the things you say. A big one you repeat a lot is that people aren't thinking about you. So I don't feel like you're terribly scared of judgment, right? Like if I told you right now, something judgy, I mean, would your feelings get hurt?
No. But that's I don't know. That's been hardened in me for a long time. I mean, I was a baseball player, and I was
I
a
know.
pitcher.
I did a deep dive in that in looking into that.
Yeah, and look, being a pitcher especially, you really have to get comfortable with the fact that you are going to have very public failure. All eyes are on you. You are sort of asking the question on the field over and over again, and the batter is sort of responding to the question that you ask. But nothing moves without the pitcher moving, and if you're not comfortable having the judgment of a massive crowd and failing, and then continuing to think that you are capable of going out and achieving and succeeding the next time, you will not make it very far. My friends that have had long careers as baseball players, especially, like gone and made a lot of money doing this, it was not the people that were the most talented. It was the people who had that little bit of delusion that allows them to fail on an enormous public stage and still be convinced that they are the best player out there.
I mean, in a sense, you did fail. You dreamed of being in the major leagues, right? So you failed that goal and dream. First of all, why? Like, why didn't you make the major leagues?
Talent and injury. Lack thereof, and then injury. I mean, I would say that was a slightly delusional dream in the sense that I was probably just not talented enough to do that at that level. There was maybe like a 2 or 3 month period where I was sharp enough where I could envision it. Maybe if that had just continued that sort of pattern of improvement. But outside that, I was just never quite good enough. And again, that little bit of delusion that I thought I was probably what allowed me to achieve at the level that I did. If I had believed that I was never good enough, I don't think I would have even ended up having a successful college career. But then the other piece was I got hurt, which sort of relates to talent, because I think people that can endure long periods of time and not get injured is a just like natural genetic predisposition that is extremely advantageous for having an athletic career at scale.
I did a deep dive of your whole baseball career, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a year where you really didn't perform to the standards you would have liked because you admitted you were too selfish. You were too focused on your own goals. So I think that's really revealing, and I think that's really interesting. Can you tell me about that? Am I right? Did I do my research there properly?
Yeah, you're hearkening back to 2008 high school season, my junior season of high school.
Amazing.
Yeah. I had a really good freshman and sophomore season, and between sophomore and junior season, I had a big growth spurt and went from throwing 80 miles an hour and being sort of maybe like a fringe Ivy League prospect to throwing about 90 miles an hour and suddenly having the attention of Stanford and all of these professional scouts, and being really considered a quote unquote prospect. And that was rocket fuel for my insecurity as a human being. I was very insecure, and the idea that I was cool in some way sort of amplified that insecurity. Like, I puffed myself up. I developed a level of arrogance and selfishness on the basis of this like very public set of affirmations that I was suddenly getting. And I showed up for that junior season really, with this mentality that I was the man. And what happens in life, in baseball and in life, is anytime you start to think you haven't figured it out, life has a way of punching you squarely in the face.
It's very true.
And that season, I got punched squarely in the face in a very necessary and very public way. And it was important in my own journey and humbling. And humbling in the realization that it established in me for the future. That you need to reduce the amplitude of your wave. Like, if you think of life as sort of this wave of ups and downs, the goal is not to avoid the ups and downs, but to reduce the amplitude. Like, never get too high, never get too low. When things are going well, remember that eventually they won't be. When things are going poorly, remember that eventually they won't be. And just continue to show up with your daily effort, show up with a positive attitude, show up with energy, and good things will happen over the long term.
So you course corrected that. I mean, you learned from your lesson, and you got in Division I Stanford baseball.
I think it's easier to reflect on these things in hindsight than in the
Oh, yeah.
moment, of course. And, look, that's not to say that that was the last time I ever made that mistake. I've made that mistake several times along my journey. Not in the last few years, because now I am very, very clear on avoiding that trap.
Yeah.
I know from enough experiences that every time I get ahead of myself and think that everything's good, something is coming around the bend to knock you out, and try to avoid that.
Hi all. I want to take a moment to make a few important announcements that I'm really excited about. As you all know, I'm committed to helping people self-actualize. In the service of that, I just had a new book come out called Rise Above. Overcome a victim mindset, empower yourself, and realize your full potential. In this book, I offer a science-backed toolkit to help you overcome your limiting beliefs and take control of your life. Are you tired of feeling helpless? This book will offer you hope, not by identifying with the worst things that have happened to you, but by empowering you to tap into the best that is within you. Rise Above is available wherever you get your books. Are you a personal coach looking to take your coaching to the next level? I'm also excited to tell you that our Foundations of Self-Actualization Coaching 3-day immersive experience for coaches is back by popular demand. Foundations of Self-Actualization Coaching is a course offered to enhance your coaching practice by offering you evidence-based tools and insights to equip you to more effectively help your clients unlock their unique creative potential. You can learn more about the course and register by going to centerforhumanpotential.com/SAC. That's centerforhumanpotential.com/SAC. Okay, now back to the show. You'd say a recipe for a good life you wish you learned this earlier. It's perfectly okay to live a life that's confusing to others. Go to bed at 8, wake up at 4, eat real foods, go on long walks, obsess over one thing, read old books, don't gossip, be loved by a few. Recipe for a good life. Do you think that a lot of things that people think are a recipe for a good life aren't as simple as it really could be? I'm always constantly surprised by how happiness and well-being comes down to some of the most simplest, just gratitude for a moment that you're in, as opposed to, well, I'll only be happy when I reach success of X, Y, and Z. Have you noticed that?
Yes. The tendency to make your own happiness conditional is a horrible tendency that humans have. You say if I get X or when I get X, then I'll be happy. The conditional statement about your own journey and your own happiness. When the reality is that you can right now choose to be happy. I think it was Voltaire that said the most important choice a man can make is the choice to be in a good mood, or something like that. The daily choice, like choose to be in a good mood, was kind of the principle of it. And it's true, right? You can do some pretty basic, free, for the most part, things that will make you have a sort of pleasant daily awareness of life. And that's not to say that everyone has access to those things. And it's not to say that money doesn't matter in getting to the point where you can think about those things. Obviously, like if you, are living under a bridge, there's a certain level of financial success that will allow you to even think about, these kind of like simpler things in life. But once you get above that level, the point is that continuing to just chase more and more and more from a financial standpoint is probably not going to be what leads to the incremental happiness you are really seeking in life.
I see a lot of congruence here between the wavelength of your thought and the wavelength of in my new book, Rise Above, which is about how to overcome a victim mindset, empower yourself, and realize your full potential. I'd love to actually send you a copy.
I would love to read it. I mean, that is... I never really use the phrase victim mindset, but it is, this whole idea of agency is really at the core of everything that I write about. It is really about believing that you are at the steering wheel of your own life, and not that life happens to you, but that you happen to it. It's why I talk about health. It's why I talk about the impact that physical health has had on my own journey in my life, because I personally believe that the fastest way to convince yourself that you have agency in your own journey in life is to take advantage of very simple daily health rituals. And
Man.
you will experience very quickly the fact that you are capable of taking an action and creating a desired outcome. And when you do that, that has ripple effects into everything else.
Yeah, my man. The exact opposite is true too. There's no this. I think we overuse the word trauma in our society right now. But the more we keep reinforcing that one thing that happened to us is holding us back in our lives, the more we start to believe that we don't have that agency. So I think the inverse is true as well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read that. Please send me one.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, I definitely see this agency and action as two very core threads running through so much of your work. So, well, let's dive into some of these types of wealth, or all of them, the 5 types of wealth that you talk about. First of all, where did you come up with these 5? Like, why did you decide that, why not 10? Why not 7? Why not 2?
I, after making the big change in my own life and stepping off the track I was on, which was the track to financial wealth at the expense of many other things, I went on a journey to try to understand what were the elements or the pillars of building the sort of good, content, fulfilled life that I was after and that I believe most people are after. And I went and spoke to, at this point, thousands of people, but at that time, a few hundred. And old people, young people, people from different backgrounds, different places all over the world, and basically asked a common set of questions around their hopes for the future, what they wished they knew when they were younger. And what kept coming up over and over again were these 4 themes: time, people, purpose, and health. Money was an enabler to some of those, but it was very rarely an end in and of itself. And that was where this whole idea of the 5 types of wealth was formulated. It was around those 4 things that kept coming up, plus money. And the reason money is one of them is because we know money does directly buy happiness. At some level, Maslow's hierarchy of needs clearly applies. You need a certain amount of financial wealth in order to build a life, to afford basic needs, food, shelter, to take care of the people around you, to have some of the basic pleasures that clearly drive incremental happiness. But beyond those, there are clear diminishing returns to just chasing incremental money. But the patterning from those early in life happiness gains that you have achieved through financial wealth accumulation is very hard to break. So I see this happening to people all around me, and it happened to me, that those early years of your career when you're making more money, you do feel this enormous happiness gain from it. And you create a pattern in your mind that ratio, or that sort of incremental linear relationship between money and happiness, is going to continue in perpetuity, but it doesn't. And you are very bad at breaking that pattern in your mind once it has leveled off. So you continue chasing, thinking that the happiness is going to come. It doesn't. You continue to make those conditional statements. It doesn't come in the durable and lasting way. And you've lost sight of these other things that are clearly going to drive it.
Yeah, I see that as related to dopamine and the chase for more and more and more, thinking that we're going to expect that's going to constantly give the same returns on our investment over time. And as you rightly point out, it's not how life works.
The way life really works
yeah.
is that you need to enjoy an average Tuesday. I haven't really articulated it this way.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Yeah.
But I mean, this is like my call it my average Tuesday theory on life. I mean, it is basically to say that your overall life satisfaction can be adequately captured or summarized by how you feel waking up on an average Tuesday. And I don't say Monday, because Monday, sometimes you have energy from the weekend and it's like, okay, the new week, you feel energized. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're sort of getting close to the weekend, so you might feel like a little pull forward of the happiness from that. But Tuesdays usually suck, right? Like no one really likes Tuesdays as a day. And if you wake up on Tuesday morning feeling pretty good and energized about your life, if you were to map your average satisfaction on Tuesdays over the course of your life and it's steadily improving, that is a recipe for a good life. You're on a good trajectory overall.
Wait, so I'm obsessed with this idea that you can choose to be in a good mood. And I'm low-key obsessed with your morning routine, and I want to try it. I kind of, because I watched a video of you. It's pitch dark and you're in the sauna not sorry, you're in an ice bath. You're in an ice
Cold
bath,
plunge. Yeah.
and you look happy. Now you're like, and what I want to understand, because I just think there's something very deep here. If I could master this, is it seemed to me like you chose to be in a good mood at 4 a.m. with a dark. You're not dependent on the external world to make you happy, and to me and I think most people are. Most people are dependent on the external world to determine their mood, and you kind of have mastered this art of choosing to be in a good mood. Can you tell us any of your secrets to help us here do that?
I really do think there is there's something I've been thinking about on this exact front, which is just this idea that awareness is perishable. What I mean by that is, you probably, and everyone listening to this probably knows that, okay, it's important to feel a level of gratitude for where you are on a daily basis. It's important to feel gratitude. And you have an awareness of that fact, that gratitude is important. But that awareness is perishable. So knowing it in a moment is much less important than knowing it in the moment. Your awareness is really tested at these like testing points, and a testing point could be waking up at 4 a.m. and you're kind of tired or you're miserable, and you can go and get into this cold water. Well, in that moment, being able to be aware, like, I am so lucky to be able to do this. I'm in this house. My like kid is happily asleep. We're generally healthy. I get to like hopefully film this little video that may inspire 5 people out in the world to have a better day than they otherwise would. This is what I get to do, and I get to call this work. And this is much better than where I was 5 years ago and what I was doing and the path I was on. So if all I have to do is get up early and get out and get into some cold water, and I get to do and live this life, why would I not be happy about that? But it's important that I have that awareness in that one moment. Because awareness in the aggregate is much less important than awareness in the specific moment when you really need it.
Yeah, this is so consistent with Christy Nelson's book, Wake Up Grateful. I think you'd like that book.
I should check it out. Wake Up Grateful. I'm going to pull it up.
Yeah, it's really good. And one of her exercises is to, instead of have to-do lists, have a get-to-do list. And it just seems so consistent with what you're talking about, being just reframing. So you're really good at cognitive reframing.
I don't really think of myself as good at any of these things. I would say I practice a lot of these things.
Yeah, you're
but that's not to say that I don't get out of bed excited to go get in the cold plunge. Let's put it that way. It's not like I wake up and I'm just like filled with immense gratitude that I get to go get into the cold, get into freezing water. But I am very consistently able to pull forward how it feels after into the before. And I think that is really the key to doing anything consistently, is the ability to sort of mentally time travel to say, this is going to suck when I walk out the door into the cold air of the morning. This is going to suck when I step into the water and for the first couple seconds. But in about 3 minutes, this is going to make me feel pretty superhuman, and I'm going to be really glad because I was able to inspire some other people around it as well. And the ability to pull that feeling forward into the before so that I can open the door and go outside is a really essential skill in life.
That's it. It is such an essential skill. It's also very much in line with the ACT approach to therapy, psychotherapy, where you act in line with your values when you don't feel like it. Even when you don't feel like it. And it seems like you're really good at not letting your emotions or mood dictate you and your higher values. Yeah,
I had this idea in the book, which I would, for me personally, I think it's the most transformative idea, which is this idea of a life raiser, like a single identity defining statement for your life of how your ideal self shows up in the world during this season of your life. I just have it written out in a bunch of places in front of me. So it'll be at my desk, it'll be in my bedroom. I just have a little card with it written on there. Mine is I will coach my son's sports teams. And it has nothing to do with sports. My son is 3 years old. He's not on any sports teams. It has everything to do with the type of person I want to be, the type of person who prioritizes his family, who shows up for his community, for his responsibilities, who never puts money before these values that I hold closely. I would never jeopardize my character or my integrity or my morals to chase things that would jeopardize those relationships. It means a lot to me with a single statement. Having that in front of me is really important because, again, at the testing point, to be able to have the awareness to ask the question, what would the type of person who coaches his son's sports teams do in this situation? That is an essential question for me to ask because very quickly I can trigger and step into my ideal self and say, okay, how would my ideal self respond here? And then it becomes much easier to act in line with my real values and the things that I hold dear, rather than allowing it to be an emotional spur of the moment thing that may or may not, pull me in a different direction from that.
Yeah. Are you inspired or influenced at all by the Stoics?
I am. I've read and read all of those more, meditations. I've read,
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, I've read Ryan Holiday's stuff. I personally, I always, I love reading the source on a lot of things. So like I read a lot of old books, modern translations on old books, I suppose, in most of those cases. But I love, I love letters, Seneca's letters. I love meditations. I would say in general, I'm just a fan of sort of history and ancient wisdom. So, throughout my book, there's stuff from Stoicism, there's stuff from Buddhism, there's stuff from the Bible, from the Bhagavad Gita. Like it's sort of all over the map because I sort of believe in this, like Nassim Taleb's, like the Lindy effect, right? Is like this idea that these things that have lasted for a reason. And most of self-improvement or self-help or personal development as a category can be traced back to things that were said thousands of years ago. And there's kind of like 10 core concepts, insert a number that basically have been said in different ways and connect with people in different ways across everyone, from the most ancient wisdom and, the Bible and the ancient books and all of those things, on through, the ancient philosophers, on through the earliest self-help people like the Jim Rohns, Zig Ziglars, etc., on through modern self-help people. So tracing back to the source on most of those, I find to be really informative.
Yeah, really. Yeah, me too. Just a lot of stuff you were saying sounded very consistent with Stoicism. Yeah. Well, what is Sahil Bloomism? What is the core to your philosophy that you feel like is missing from the self-help world? Like, what makes you unique in the self-help world?
I think there's probably a couple things here that I would point to. First and foremost is what I said at the outset, which is questions over answers. The entirety of the self-help category, and this goes back to the ancients, has been the answer to all of your problems.
Oh, that's a good point.
It is to say, here's the one way that you should live your life in order to be happy or content or fulfilled. Here's the one way that you can make money. Here's the one way to be healthy. Here's the whatever. It's forcing an answer down your throat. I try to invert that and help people ask better questions so that you can come to the answers for yourself. And the reason that I believe that is I don't think that anyone else has the answers for your life. And I think that the assumption that someone else has an answer for your life is relinquishing your agency to other people, versus I need help wrestling with the question and I already have the answer within me. I just need to unlock and then act upon it. And I can help people do that. And I can help frame things in a way that connect with people and share a story or a visual or a perspective that maybe just connects with you at the right moment at the right time that allows you to then go and act upon it. I think that is a necessarily slower path. I think I would probably accumulate a significantly bigger following much faster than I have if I took a very hard, clear niche perspective on a single thing and hammered it home over and over again. But I don't really care about that. I care about impacting people and creating these positive ripples in the world. So I'm happy to take the long, slow path to doing that.
I mean, is it possible to be more popular than you?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I think if you told me like, hey, I'm going to put a gun to your head, and if you don't, 10x your following by next year, I'm going to kill you. I would do things a lot differently than what I'm doing now. I would pick some hot take and I would just say it over and over again, regardless of how many people I pissed off. And frankly, in order to piss people off, because that's how you actually get views and shares now, is like you have some people that love you and a bunch of people that are like aggressively, angrily against you. And that's what you do. And I'm not interested in playing that game or doing that.
Well, you're by any metric wildly successful, and there's some reason why so many people are resonating with what you do. I do notice that there's a very unique art style to you. You have these visuals you put up, and I assume that it's something that you sat down and thoughtfully worked with a designer on. Is that right?
I wish I could say it was more thoughtful than it was. I am a big believer that when it comes to reaching people and impacting people with a message, you need to be willing to adapt and experiment quickly and iterate quickly. What normally happens to people on, the kind of like journey with social media or with content in general is they have a style that works. These platforms are effectively free markets. So what happens is if it's working, a million people that have way less credibility will start doing it because they see it working. And then what happens to the original person is they get clouded out, like drowned out by the noise of all the other people coming in, and they're unable to adapt and they kind of fade into oblivion. And these amazing ideas that they were sharing now no longer get seen on the same level. I've always sort of understood and recognized that. And so what I've always said is, I don't really care what the format is of how the idea gets shared. I just want to make sure it reaches and impacts people. So if I'm able to create and have an idea, I want to make sure that we are adaptable in the way that idea is disseminated so that it reaches and impacts the maximum number of people possible in a positive way. Whether that is, Twitter threads originally, which were an enormous thing that no longer are, whether it's talking head videos, which were a big thing and kind of no longer are, these images now that we've been doing that are clearly working. I have no illusion that will continue to always work because I know that people see it working, and now ChatGPT makes it easier than ever to replicate a people's style and images. There's already a whole bunch of people trying to do the exact same style because they've seen it working. That eventually will no longer stand out as a result, and I'll need to have a different format and a different adjustment to the approach. I would say in general, I lean towards kind of simple, clean, aesthetic things because I think it's I don't want to like obfuscate the message with all sorts of complexity, but I am super happy to be dynamic in the way it's delivered.
Scientists are very good at obfuscating complex dynamics.
Yeah, it's the reason that I think, oftentimes the smartest people have the biggest struggles in having their ideas shared. I mean, look, like my dad is a professor and has probably written 20, 30 books in his life. He's an economist and demographer, most well known for an idea or a theory called the demographic dividend, which is this idea that a population as it goes through this period of having a very high working age to dependent age ratio, which creates a sort of natural set of conditions for extreme economic growth if harnessed well with government policies. And, he's written all these academic papers and books over the years, and we laugh about it because he was like, I think you sold more books in your initial pre-order launch than I've sold cumulatively across my entire life. And he's much smarter than me. But like the ability to disseminate ideas in a way that clicks with people so that they can go and act upon it is a separate entire skill from intelligence. And I think it's the reason why you see people that are able to do both really reach people on an extraordinarily elevated plane.
It's so funny that you said your dad's a professor of economics, because a lot of the way you talk, I was going to say it sounds like economics.
I definitely grew up around it. I mean, my dad, my dad's one of the smartest people that I know.
Is it David Bloom?
David Bloom. Yeah. David, he's been at Harvard for the last, 25 or so years.
Yeah. But you obviously got some of that genes, and you the way that you think about you do like putting things into formulas, and you do like putting things into you like systematizing things.
Yeah, I like having a model for thinking about different things in the world. I mean, I really, it sort of is like the Charlie Munger lattice work of mental models, school of thinking. I wouldn't say that I ever think about what that lattice work is. You know, a lot of people will ask me like, oh, you have all these mental models and frameworks. You must just be overwhelmed by them all like in your brain. And I never feel that way because they're just things that I sort of think about or know. But that doesn't mean that I'm like having to filter through them somewhere in some software database every single time something comes up. I just know when I see certain things in the world, I'm like, oh, I recognize this. And it's really helpful to have a way of thinking about whatever different patterns you see out there in front of you. You know, to be able to kind of quickly understand someone, relate to them a little bit more, you know, understand some dynamic, some struggle that you're going through. I have found that very helpful for just like navigating the human journey.
How old are you, Sahil?
I'm 34.
I've been thinking a lot about aging and energy. I'm now 45. I definitely don't have the same energy. I wish I did, but I don't have the same energy I had when I was 34, 35. Do you think you're going to be able to kind of keep this up the rest of your life? Like, are there going to be, like, do you think it's harder for people who are older and have a different sort of temperament and biological thing as you do to choose your mood and, you know, do the kind of things you're doing?
I think it becomes significantly more difficult with age to scatter your energy across a bunch of things. I in general, if I were to take a cross section of my days, feel like I have significantly less energy now than I had at 25.
Really?
My ability to go out to multiple dinners a week and then still feel good the next day, or my ability to do really hard workouts and still feel good physically, still have the cognitive energy. Those things have all declined for sure. What I've gotten better at, though, is the wisdom and appreciation of that. So I'm able to navigate it significantly better than I did, which is to say, I know that my creative energy basically spikes in the morning very early. So now I make sure that I'm not working out during my one creative block of the day. I need to be working on something creative during that early morning set of hours. I know that physically I feel very good in the middle of the morning after having breakfast. So that's when I'm going to make sure that I'm working out. So I've gotten more thoughtful about where I actually structure and place things during the day. And I've gotten much better at just saying no to things that drain my energy enormously. And I would say that what that's done in the aggregate is that despite a sort of slowly declining overall energy base, my sort of effective energy is significantly higher than it was because of how it's actually like on an adjusted basis gotten much better.
But it's definitely going to be different when you're like 50, right? Or you're anticipating it won't be.
No, I mean, I would assume that I will have significantly less energy for things in general, and I will need to continue to whittle down the things that I deploy my energy into. But I hope that I'm doing that. I would say if you think of life as kind of just like this big funnel where you start at the very beginning with tons of different opportunities, and you're kind of slowly narrowing as you figure out what the right ones are and the places where you want to deploy your energy and attention. I hope that that continues happening and that my finite energy is kind of deployed into a smaller set of things that really matter to me.
Where do you place yourself within the biohacking community? Do you see yourself as like biohacking friendly, adjacent, in it? Where are you?
I do not self-identify as a biohacker in any way. I would say that I generally do very few of the things that biohackers spend time or energy or cognitive load on. Yes, I do a cold plunge. I actually don't think many biohackers are cold plunging anymore, mostly because it actually is quite hard. And there's not a ton of science around the physical benefits, plenty around the mental benefits, but not around the physical. And it's also just really painful and hard. And I think most people aren't willing to do that. I do a sauna every day, but I do that because it's my way of unwinding in the evening, and the health benefits are a positive.
Hey, Sahil, I want to say you inspired me to go to the sauna every day at 6 p.m.
Oh, amazing.
That was you. That was you who inspired me to do that. So thank you.
It is, I think it is the single highest ROI purchase that I've made.
I agree. It's changed my life.
Yeah. It is my way of like unwinding at the end of the day. I bring reading in there every night. I journal. It is an enormous life improvement for me. But again, the health benefits that it might have are sort of upside to all of the daily benefits that I actually experience from it. And so, I don't wear a sleep tracker. I don't do red light therapy. There's very few things that I do. What I would say I do is that I really care about how I look and feel. That matters to me. And so I really pay attention to what I eat, and I track and I understand it. But that goes back to my athlete days. I've been an athlete my whole life. And so I always understood. I took training seriously. I really enjoyed the training and the process of getting better at things. But like a biohacker won't run a marathon because they'll say, oh, it's not actually good for me. I don't care because I really enjoy the process of getting better and going after a big, ambitious goal. So I'm not like, my training isn't optimized for some, level of whatever, longevity or health. It's optimized for my overall return on life that I'm getting from it.
So you're not getting all Brian Johnson over there?
I'm not getting all Brian Johnson over there. I know Brian, and I think that what he's done for overall, appreciation of investing in your health is really positive for the world, but it's not for everyone.
Not for everyone. Well, I think that's a really important to reiterate that is your message, is that none of the stuff you're talking about is a protocol, is a thing that will work for everyone. But there are these general principles that I think are inspiring people no matter what.
Yes, that is. I think that's very well articulated and said. What I would just say is that the underlying principles or sort of most distilled pillars of each of these things may constitute a protocol, but they are like the least sexy sounding protocol I could give you. Yeah. And look, I mean, if I was being a cynic, what I would say is that it is very hard to sell you the protocol I would sell you on health. What I would tell you is that if you move for 30 minutes a day, if you eat like 80 or 90% whole unprocessed foods, and if you sleep for 7 to 8 hours a night, you're going to be pretty darn healthy, probably healthier than like 90% of the population. I can't sell you an ebook on that. I can't sell you a course. You're not going to buy my training program. And so it is not advantageous to any social media guru or, influencer out there for that to be the basis of their protocol. The protocol needs to sound complicated and sexy so that you have to come to me to get it. Right? It's the same as financial advisors. No financial advisor wants to sell you the plan that's just like, hey, dollar cost average into the Vanguard index funds, because then they won't need to be paid in order to do that for you. They need to sell you a really complicated sort of like, wealth planning, arbitrage, covered call option, whatever, all the million things so that you're willing to pay them fees. That's the cynical side of me, is going to say that like, the incentives in all of these systems are to give you the complicated protocol. So people give you the complicated protocol. My incentives are to help people get better at whatever it is that they're doing and to help them ask better questions. And if I can, if I can write books and if I can share ideas and if I can build trust with people, I'm certain that I'm going to do just fine in my overall life along that journey. But that is a very different goal and approach. And it's not a goal that is really driven around building some, massive billion-dollar empire of X.
Right. But these 5 things are really quite simple at the end of the day, but they're profoundly important. The 5 types, we didn't even mention the 5 types of wealth, and we're going to end this interview now. So I better mention them. Time wealth, social wealth, mental health, physical wealth, and financial wealth. And just to give people an example, I mean, it is a pretty simple protocol to say invest in your relationships and community, but let's just call it an important reminder. Not everything has to be a protocol. Not everything has to be a protocol. Some things that are valuable are just reminders, right? And so in a lot of ways, you're reminding people about some of the things that are tried and true and will be to the end of humanity, of time, important for our well-being and our whole person functioning, right?
It goes to the point that I made earlier on awareness, which is to say that awareness really matters most at the testing point. And what I can do and what I can add to the conversation here is give you a framework that allows you to sort of package that awareness so that you have it with you in your mind when that testing point comes in whatever area. when you're making a decision to like spend another late night at the office instead of having that date night with your partner, you might have that awareness. I read the 5 Types of Wealth. I know that this really matters much more than this late night that I might spend again. And so you make the decision to go and spend time with that person, or you call your mom that one extra time. You do the trip with your friends, or you invest in your mental health and mental well-being, or you do the run. Whatever that thing is, having that frame of reference in your mind at the moment when it really counts is more important than just having it in some general abstract sense.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thanks, man, so much for being on my podcast finally. I have a whole list of notes of things we didn't get to, but to be continued. Keep up the conversation. Really respect and admire what you're doing. So keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to meet in person.